Good evening, everybody. Welcome into the second episode of the Everyman Sports Podcast. I am your co-host, Matt Robert, and the reason I say co-host is, yes, for those of you that listened to the first episode, I do have a co-host here with me, and without further ado, I'm going to let him take it away.
Hello, everybody. My name is Braden Morris. I am, in fact, the cousin of Matt Robert, year older than him school-wise, but 6 months apart in age. We're both 25-year-old dudes who pretty much live, breathe, and sleep sports. We love talking about it, and we do a thing every Sunday where we get together as a family and we have dinner, and Matt kind of threw around the idea to me if he wanted to start a podcast, and I've been thinking about it for a while, and I thought, dude, it might be fun. People might not care what we have to say. People might care. But you know what? It'll be fun to try and talk and just talk about things going on. And, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm very excited for this opportunity. I'm ready to see just what we can do with it and what type of fun we can have. A little bit about me. Like I said, I am 25. Matt mentioned in the first episode his favorite teams are the Nuggets, Vikings, and the Bills, and I'm with them. I am a big fan of the Nuggets. I'm also a big fan of the Avalanche and the Broncos out of Denver. I find myself cheering a lot for the Bills, but I can't really call myself a true fan, as I really just hopped on the bandwagon when Josh Allen got drafted there 7th overall back in 2018?
Yep, 2018.
Yeah, so it's been a while now that I've found myself cheering for Buffalo, and, hopefully this coming year is the year we finally see them get to a Super Bowl. But I don't know how much I can really root for that as long as Bo Nix keeps making the playoffs. So those are pretty much my pro teams. I guess also with MLB, my favorite team is by far diehard St. Louis Cardinals fan. It's a little rough watching them right now when they really, really struggle to score about 3 runs a game. But we're hoping next year they get new ownership and or I guess just new leadership, I guess I should say. And hopefully we can do something to turn it around. And last but not least, college-wise, I'm gonna get flamed for this. We start this 2 years ago. I'm sitting on top of the throne saying, "Yeah, I was 13-0 Florida State fan, but now I'm a 2-10 fan of the Florida State Seminoles." College baseball starting up. I think right now they have the lead. They're about to go to 13-0 on the year. So hopefully to end this horrible, horrible season of Florida State sports that I've had to watch, I can end it on a good one with their baseball team hosting a trophy in Omaha. But so that's a little bit about me. And I know we have a lot to talk about. So Matt, if you want to, let's get into it, man.
All right, perfect. Thank you for that introduction, Braden. First thing we're going to talk about is really the fact that I don't think either of us were ready for the relentless beast that is the 24-hour sports news cycle, especially as you get close to the start of the league year in the NFL.
Absolutely, man. It's, there was a bunch of big signings today, a bunch of big releases today. Yesterday, Saquon signs that 2-year, $41.5 million contract.
Yep, $20 million a year.
Yeah, that's absurd for a running back.
Absolutely absurd.
He deserves every freaking ounce of it.
I was just going to say that.
And so, I think he's going to set the new precedent. But on the flip side of it, I don't think that there is another running back in the league that deserves it. So I think it's a high handle.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. And I think, this deal could age poorly for Philadelphia in the future. But with the way that their team is set up, I think they have a really good opportunity to capitalize on a lot of their young stars being on rookie deals and having a lot of their core intact, their offensive line, their quarterback, obviously, and some young studs on the defensive line. So this could look like a deal that was well worth it for the Eagles in the end, or we could be sitting here in 2 years and being like, well, they got the one.
Absolutely, man. I think without a doubt right now we're looking at a very, very high possibility of them running it back to back. I mean, Saquon, if he plays at even remotely the same level that he played at last year, there's without a doubt, I think they're back in the NFC Championship and most likely a Super Bowl again. And they just signed Zach Bond to a 3-year,
$$51 million deal.
$51 million. Thank you.
And let's talk about Zach Bond for a minute, because in the last 5 or so years, I don't think I've ever seen a player that has really come out of nowhere from the depths of special teams and come on the scene like Zach Bond has. Because before this year, I had no idea who that dude was.
Absolutely. Selfishly, I'm very jealous that the Eagles were able to re-sign him. I wish he was a little more hesitant and wanted to see a bigger role and chase a bigger bag with somebody, because I was really hoping that the Broncos were going to offer him something to boost that linebacker core of theirs. I don't think it was horrible for the Broncos this year, but everybody has room for improvement. I think Zach Bond is one of the top linebackers in the league. He's intelligent. He flies around the field. He makes tackles, and he secures tackles. I feel like that's it's a thing everyone does, but not everybody does it.
Well,
great. And Zach Bond raps. He makes tackles. And it deserves all the credit in the world and all the money in the world for these linebackers. It's a hard job. These running backs are huge, and I kudos to him. I'm very sad that he had to re-sign with Philly, but I think their defense is going to be a force for years to come. Like you said, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, they got young guys on their line that are on their rookie deals right now. They're getting them right now for a bag of chips. And for the next 3 or 4 years, while those guys are still under that rookie contract, there's not a reason that these guys can't win 2 or 3, or they have every opportunity in the world to win multiple Super Bowls.
Yep, I entirely agree. And it's just a testament to how great of a GM Howie Roseman is, how smart he is with his moves, how calculated he is, how he watches pieces really fall into place. Because as a Bills fan, and I tread lightly here when I say this, there is hope for Keon Coleman in the NFL.
And for anybody that doesn't know, right now we're getting distracted. We both, just like every other dude, the point of this podcast of an Everyman Sports Podcast, we like to put coin on games. So we're sitting here. Florida, Alabama just went to halftime with Florida taking the lead 41-40. Both of us threw some coin on the over. It was 178.5. We need a little bit of points. We got some ground to make up, but that's we like to watch games. We like to think we're smarter than a sports book, and it's fun. It's really, really fun. Right now is a great time to be a sports fan. Who doesn't like sitting back, cracking a Coors like you and I are, and watching these 18, 19-year-old, 20-year-old boys try to win us some money?
Well, I mean, not even that, but this is when it gets real in basketball. We're about 3 weeks away from March Madness, which I think might be the best 4 days of sports in the American.
It is. The round of 64 and the round of 32, just they're like an American gift. And I know that internationally people watch them, but March Madness is just a blessing. It's my favorite time of the year. And we're just heating up. I think these teams are all now, they're getting ready to play for something instead of just a regular season. And so I'm really excited. I love March.
Yep, so do I. And not to get too off track on the agenda, but March Madness was the one thing that really got me into this whole sports shebang. I think it was 14, and I saw my dad watching Oklahoma NDSU in the 2014 tournament, and I'd gotten into basketball a couple years prior because I wanted to be a manager for our team, and I just fell in love with the sport almost instantly. And being able to sit down and be able to really pick out what was going on the court, what kind of coverages were being thrown out, what the what the players were trying to do on offense, getting to sit down and talk about that with my dad was like Braden said, it's another blessing of the sports that we watch and love. And when I think back to all that's happened, it's led me here, and I couldn't be more thankful for it.
Yeah, that's for anybody listening, right now, all of our listeners pretty much know you, but none of them, I don't think, really saw the side of you where me and your dad, we couldn't get you to watch a sports game when you were young if we put $1,000 in front of you. And, you got to that 13, 14 range, and it just sparked. You love football, you love basketball, and I was like, look at how much you missed out on, buddy.
I know, man. Looking back at all those highlights when we were growing up, all the great games I missed and all the great things going on in sports. But hey, I think over the last 11 years, I've made up for a lot of lost time.
Absolutely. I think you know more statistically and analytically than just about anybody that I know. And so, you know sports, you know them on a deeper level than pretty much just the average watcher. And it's a lot of fun to talk with you sports. And, I think that's a main reason you and I thought about doing this. So it should be a lot of fun, man. But, we're just sweating games. So let's get back to what we were talking about. We're getting into what we got. Sam Hubbard just retired today.
Sam Hubbard retired, and that was a shocking one to me, because this is interesting, because he's been on the opposite end of Trey Hendrickson for a good 4 or 5 years now. And in his early years coming out of Ohio State, the man was a menace on the edge. I feel like every 3-4 plays when I was catching a glimpse of the Bengals on Red Zone, I could just hear Sam Hubbard gets the sack, Sam Hubbard gets the tackle for loss. He just had a natural ability to get into the backfield and cause chaos and make plays. But I really feel like even as the Bengals, went through their down years after Andy Dalton and got Joe Burrow, he kind of faded into the background. Didn't really make his mark on that team that went on that shocking run in 2021 and went to the Super Bowl. But even then, he's 29 years old. That's
Luke Kuechly did it.
That is true.
I think there's and I think once you kind of start making your place and you catch your money, like Luke Kuechly, he said he had a lot of goals outside the sport of football. And, and I guess I'm not saying Sam Hubbard does. He doesn't. I didn't really read too much into his retirement, but you get in there, there's no doubt or question about it that these guys that get into the league and they stay past their rookie contract, they're not just making money for themselves. They're making generational money. And so I think a lot of these guys are saying, I have the opportunity to retire before I'm 30. I have a load of money to turn into loads of money. Get out while I can, get out while I'm healthy, get out while my kids are young so I can see them grow. Not saying it's a bad thing, but you look at guys like Drew Brees, where when he retired, his kids were all what I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. They were probably 7, 8, 9 years old, around there, kind of turning into the older generation of kids.
Right.
And he didn't really get to see a lot of their young years. And, and I don't even know if Sam Hubbard's a dad, but just thinking in the perspective of him, if he does have a kid, he wants to see his kid grow. And, he came in, made his impact, and I think he's leaving when he feels is right. He's healthy. He's on a high horse. I'm sure the Bengals season did not go how he wanted it to go necessarily. But he's leaving how he wants to, and I think that's kudos to him. He's got a load of money, and I think that he has a plan to make sure that does it for him.
Right. And it's funny that you mentioned Luke Kuechly at the top of that, because I think as fans we get so used to just seeing them go out there and bash heads with other grown huge men every Sunday for however long they're in the league. And then you look at a guy like Luke Kuechly, and he sustained a lot of concussions during his career. Mm-hmm. And I don't exactly know if Sam Hubbard had that extensive of an injury history, but it also, it just makes you remember, oh yeah, these guys are human. These guys have lives. They have families. They have people that they care for.
Exactly, man. And and I'm not trying to put myself on the same spectrum as these NFL players. These
of course
guys are bigger, they're faster, they're stronger than anything I ever played against. Well, I guess I can't really say that because I played against Logan Wilson in high school. He's an NFL player. So,
little fun fact for you.
Fun fact, yes. But the average size in the NFL is unlike anything I've ever seen. And so, but when I was playing football, there were times where I'd get up from a tackle and I'd have to like blink twice to try to remember my name. And it's a very fun sport. Everybody loves to watch it. Everybody lives NFL, college, whatever, football, but it is a big risk. And, we're getting into a deeper topic than probably we need to, but I'm kind of on both sides. I see the dangers because I've had concussions playing football in my life too, but at the same time, the way that the NFL's making it, give me football back. I'm tired of soft football. I live for the hits and, but like Luke Kuechly, he got out when his head was still on straight instead of running into the ground for like Ray Lewis, who played like God knows how long. I mean, I watched him my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And he ran it until he was old, and he's okay right now, but not all people are that safe when they play the game. So there's many different ways you can think about it and look at it, but Luke Kuechly, it all plays together, and I'm glad that Sam Hubbard is able to get out. He's able to do what he can, and ultimately, I feel like feels like he's making the right choice, and it's good for him.
Right. That's all that really matters at the end of the day. And now we've got some more interesting topics to switch to on the NFL, because we're not done yet, ladies and gentlemen. Max Crosby also signed the most expensive deal in NFL history for a non-quarterback. I believe it was 3 years, $168 million.
Yeah,
something along those lines.
It was a lot for a little bit of time to be in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
He should just take that contract and go and throw it all on black on the table. Just go see what happens. Turn it into even more. But no, right now, him and Brock Bowers stand together, and all I can picture looking at that team is that meme on the internet where you see the Lamborghini sitting outside of the trailer park, because that's the Raiders right now. Speaking about the Raiders, drafts coming up, I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to make a move to get a quarterback. And possibly, I know we got another subject on here. DK Metcalf asked for a trade. Cooper Kupp's open for a trade. Go and get one of these big names. Get a wide receiver 1 in there. Just got Max Crosby. You have Brock Bowers in year 2. Trade up. Try Cam Ward. Try Shedeur. I would personally take Cam Ward if they got the number 1 overall pick. But they have a lot of upside. And I think keeping Max Crosby is what's going to keep fans there. It's what's going to keep people showing up. And that they have a ton of salary cap this year, don't they? I think they have.
I believe so. I think they have a lot of money to play
I think
with
they're like top
season.
5 in money to play with this year.
Yeah.
They have no reason to not try to make a move. And
no.
Max Crosby, step 1. I think once free agency hits, and the free agency hit on the 10th, their open free agents are there. DK, like I said, DK sitting there, Cooper Kupp sitting there. Go make a move and trade up in the draft and see what you can do. So yeah, that's really all I got to say about Max. I think it was a good deal by the Raiders. Selfishly, I wish I would have seen him go to Detroit, because I think that would have been cool to see him and Hutchinson together. But
the Vikings fan in me would have nightmares for the next 5 years.
Yes, I know I'm speaking as a Minnesota hater right now, but I think it would have been fun to see him along that that Detroit defense trying to tear it up a little bit.
Yeah, he's definitely a piece that he's the kind of talented piece that you need to keep on your roster for at least 10 years, because it's hard to find franchise players in the NFL. And when they come onto the scene like Crosby has, you have to get him and his agent sitting down in the office with the GM. And when you ask how much you want, you sign how much they want.
I will say, unfortunately, in today's market, it's pretty much you hand them a blank check and you say, what do you want? When you really want to keep these guys, you know, it's pretty much now it just seems like it's a very, very common pattern of just who's going to be the next highest paying X in football.
Right.
It just seems that's all the contracts are these days. So, you know, Max Crosby just did it today. He became the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. So I think it's just a common thing. And, you know, speaking of that, I just had a quick question that I know I've asked you before the plot. Let's see, like, how soon is it before, like, Shohei's contract is minimum and we see a first $1 billion contract in Major League sports?
The really jarring part of that is I don't think we're too far off.
I don't either. I thought we were years away, and then Mahomes signs the 450, and then it turns into Lamar, and, you know, Burrow.
and Joe Burrow and Josh Allen and all these top quarterbacks in the league.
Exactly, and it just keeps occurring, and then Shohei, you know, I'm speaking in terms of the big four sports. You know, Shohei now sets the next one for $700 million, and then Juan Soto sets it for, I think, $765 million. Like, it just keeps climbing, and I don't think I think we're far away, but I think we're closer than people might actually think to a $1 billion contract being signed.
I mean, and what's really staggering to me is that it's not just within one sport. It's not just within the NFL, not just within the MLB, not just within the NBA. The salary cap is rising in every single North American sport.
And I think it has a lot to do with sports gambling becoming such a major thing across sports that I couldn't tell you how, I couldn't tell you why. I'm not a financial guy, but the sports betting has to take a role into these salary caps, right? Like, I mean, it just seems like it, you know, with how many people are invested in their teams and sports betting and this and that, like that, those salary caps are rising for a reason.
Right.
I mean, maybe that's a dumb idea, but I'm not saying DraftKings is cutting a direct check to every team in the league, but it has to play a role, right? With the way that people are now interacted on a financial level instead of just an emotional level with their teams.
Right.
Maybe. I don't know. That's kind of just a thought that I've had, and I've always wondered it. Like I said, I don't know for sure on it, but
right.
Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but it seems to not be coincidental to me with that. Sports betting gets more and more impactful, and the salary caps and the contracts just keep following it, going up.
Yep, that's the way that it's going. And what was I going to say on this? Well, if we if it comes back to me later, we can circle back to this. But I want to ask you real quick: where's Davante Adams going to go?
If Green Bay doesn't trade for DK, possibly back there.
You really think they'll take him back, huh?
I don't know, man. They need a wide receiver one bad. And I know people,
they do.
What about Christian Watt? No. DK, Cooper Kupp, Davante Adams. There's proven, legit wide receiver ones available right now. Go get one if I'm Green Bay.
Yep, that's what I'm thinking.
Or he's on the back end of his career. He's going to go destination, whether it be Arizona, Tampa, Miami, join Tyreek Hill down in Miami.
Tampa would be interesting because Chris Godwin's a free agent.
Chris Godwin's going out.
He's getting up there. He and Adams are around the same age, so it's not like you're getting too big of a difference in the the amount of ability they have left in their bodies. But if they don't re-sign Godwin, I think you can get Adams with a similar skill set for a relatively cheaper contract.
And I mean, goodness, dude, those two, if him and Mike Evans got into a locker room together, their Christmas gifts might be wheelchairs. That's going to be one old wide receiver core.
But hey, I mean, obviously Mike Evans is one of the best wide receivers of this generation, who's I think is going to break Jerry Rice's record next year.
Especially with Baker Mayfield throwing him that rock.
Mm-hmm.
People might hate him. I love Baker. I love the way he plays. I love the swagger that he carries. The dude can throw a good ball.
I agree.
I mean, for what was it? There was a stretch of 4 or 5 weeks last regular season where he was the leader in the passing yards. He's still got it. And I truly feel bad looking back on Baker and seeing that he got thrown away for a dude that has a butt fetish out of Cleveland. He's the only – without him, they wouldn't even have a playoff win.
Yep.
And I think that Baker is a good quarterback. I think Devontae would not be going to a bad situation. But, I want to say Green Bay is going to call Devontae, but I think he's also at the point of his career he's going to try and search destination.
Yeah, and something tells me that he's going to go where there's a team with a clear need for a wide receiver one or somebody that can at least stretch the field and make the defense commit. I mean, like I said, I think my top 3 destinations for him are Tampa, LA, because they need a wide receiver badly. And I think Buffalo is also an option.
Are you talking Chargers?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Chargers are in desperate need of a wide receiver. Ladd McConkey's great, but I think Chargers fans are gonna have a blood vessel explode if they have to watch another season of Quentin Johnson as a wide receiver one.
Dude, and Quentin Johnson, poor guy. I loved him coming out of TCU, and he's just proved that he couldn't catch a cold.
Well, I don't know about that, but what I'll say is it just blows my mind. Like, did he get the yips? Like, did he just forget how to catch footballs once he got to the NFL? Because I didn't watch a lot of TCU in 2022, but what I did watch was when Max Duggan needed to get a big chunk of yards and they needed to get a first down, Quentin Johnston was there, and he almost always held on to the football.
Yes, I couldn't tell you what happened. I don't think that he is I don't think he's a bad wide receiver. I don't think he's a bust. I just think he's very underperforming of how he performed at TCU.
Yeah, relative to his expectations, he has severely.
And on top of that, maybe adding a guy like Davante Adams to almost relieve the attention off of him and Ladd, and now you got 3 receivers across the board that are threats. I mean, Ladd proved to be a damn good wide receiver last year. And, you throw Devontae in there. That's whether he's, what is he now, 34, 35, 36? He's got to be mid-30s. I'm
just thinking off the top of my head when he came out of Fresno State, excuse me.
That was like 2014?
2014. So yeah. He'd have to be around, what are we, 2025, 32, 33?
Yeah, so he's getting into his 30s, but he's still a very, very legit wide receiver that people have to pay attention to. And I think it helps Herbert. I think it'll help J.K. Dobbins. I think it'll help Ladd. And I think it'll help Quentin Johnston. I like your thought of L.A. I kind of don't really see Devontae wanting to go back out west. I kind of just see him wanting to go to Florida or something.
Yeah, I can
like I said,
that.
Green Bay. I mean, Green Bay, at this point, what do you have to lose? Not that I'm saying their receiver core I think the easiest way for me to say it is they have a whole lot of wide receiver 2s and 3s running around.
That's the way that I look at it, because Christian Watson is a good wide receiver. I don't think
great.
he's a caliber.
I think he's a very good wide receiver.
I don't think he's the caliber of a wide receiver 1 because, I mean, he gets hurt a lot. And let's just call it what it is. He is an injury risk at this point in his career.
He is.
And
he's what? Did he just get injured last year?
He tore his ACL on
That's what I thought.
last season last week of the season.
That's what I thought. Goodness. Yep. And so they had, who do they got right there? They got Romeo Doubs, and who's their Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs,
Jalen Reed. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, I think the easiest way to put it is they're all very good receivers, but I think they're all very good wide receiver 2s and 3s.
Yep, that's where I'm at. I definitely think Green Bay is going to be in the market for DK Metcalf. They're going to give Devontae Adams
when you got
a call.
Your own freaking running back in Josh Jacobs saying we need a wide receiver 1, you gotta. It tells you something. And is that a kick in the nuts to his teammates? Yes. I don't think he necessarily should have said that in an interview, but it's true. I think they have good receivers, and it's no knock to them, but they don't have that DK Metcalf who steps out on the field and you go, that's wide receiver 1.
Right.
So I'd like to see him go to Green Bay, go back there, go Jordan Love. If not, I think he's going to go destination to kind of finish out his career, sign a 3-year in Tampa or something.
Yeah, that's kind of where I see it shaking out. Well, that's it for the NFL portion for now.
Well, hang on. I got one more that I'm curious to hear about your take on it.
Okay.
How do you think, oh my goodness, Deebo Samuel's going to do in Washington?
That's one situation that I'm going to be watching pretty closely next year, because he's not the same player he was in 2021 when he was probably a top 4, top 5 receiver in the league.
Absolutely.
And injuries are a big part of his story. He gets hurt, it feels like at least 2-3 times a year. Thankfully, nothing too major to where he's out for a significant amount of time, but enough to where if I were in any front office talking to San Francisco about trading for him, it would give me pause, because he's not young anymore. He's nearing 30. And it remains to be seen if he can actually be an actually reliable wide receiver 1A next to Terry McLaurin.
Yeah.
But that being said, I will say it gives Washington another option at wide out, because as great as Terry is, teams are going to key in on him and they're going to force other players to beat them.
Absolutely. And my first thought about it when I saw that Deebo got traded for that 5th round pick, all I could think about was Jaden Daniels scrambling around, running for 63 yards on a 3rd and 9, trying to escape, Jalen Carter, and he throws it to Deebo, and Deebo drops it for a first down. That's all I could think about. I'm just, dude, I don't know if it was a bad year for him, a bad stint, but that man's hands. What big game was it where he had that first down up the seam, and it was right after he tweeted something about it was like, they don't throw to me so I can't drop the ball, or he tweeted something foolish, and he ends up perfect pass from Brock Purdy, first down incoming, and it just slips right through his hands. And
I know what you're talking about, but I need to look this up and try to find it, because it really, but I definitely do understand, and I do agree with your point. I think he's not as surefire of a pass catcher as he was in the early part of his career.
Absolutely.
And I think a 5th round pick is the best value they could have gotten for him with where he's at in his career.
If I would have, I'm with you. I would have been shocked if I saw anybody give higher than a 4th.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I think it also had a lot to play with how he kind of handled himself during that down year. I don't really think anybody's going to want to give up a 1st round for a head case.
No.
So,
No.
but yeah, I just was curious how you thought about him. I'm hopefully he turns it around a little bit in Washington, and it. We'll be curious to see how Jaden Daniels tears it up again next year because, God, that man took the league by storm.
Well, last thing I'll say on this, and then there's one more big thing today that we forgot to go over. I would not be surprised if he had a CJ Stroud type of sophomore season.
Yeah, I mean, it is a possibility. CJ Stroud took the league by storm his rookie year. Everybody said, what are the Panthers doing not drafting Bryce Young, blah, 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 or not drafting CJ instead of Bryce and blah, blah, blah. And this year he looked average, I think is safe to say. Yeah, he was still good, agree. But he was very middle of the pack.
Right. And I will say injuries did have a lot to do with it. His about 3/5 of his offensive line were injured all year. He lost his top 2 wideouts, one for about 70% of the season, one for about 40%, and then the other sadly got his leg destroyed for the second year in a row. I'm really hopeful that Tank Dell can come back and be a wide receiver in this league because he really is a difference maker for Houston's offense when he's out there.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean that's really going to be the barometer that I have for Jaden Daniels in his second year is can he rise above what's going to be coming for him in his second year and really prove that he's one of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yep, I agree.
All right. Last thing I want to cover real quick before we switch over to some other news. The Chiefs trade Joe Thuney to the Bears for a 4th.
I saw that this morning as I was heading to work. I think the Bears are making necessary moves. Caleb Williams got sacked, 68 times last year?
Something insane.
I mean, it was something. They desperately need help on their offensive line, and I think they made a good move. I think Tooney's going to really, really hate himself in Chicago when he goes from having Patrick Mahomes as quarterback to all of a sudden watching Caleb Williams with his fingernails painted doink a football around. But Chicago, good move for Chicago. Joe Thuney's a solid lineman, and it'll be interesting to see how the Bears are this coming year if they can answer the hype that they surprisingly had this offseason.
Well, there's a meme that I'm seeing around on a lot of the other big sports podcasts I listen to. It's that the Bears are always off-season champions.
Yes, they are. Yep, that's a good one.
And for Kansas City side on this real quick, the left side of their line now is completely exposed. You have questions at left tackle, and Joe Thuney, in my opinion, is one of the 3 best left guards in the NFL. And I mean, even though he is in his early 30s and he has 1 year left on his contract, I just don't think I'd let that guy go. I mean, I know you've got the other guy on the other side, Trey Smith. He was franchise tag. They want to extend him. But good offensive lines are hard to come by, even for the good teams.
I just so desperately hope that this is the beginning of Rome falling for Kansas City Chiefs. I don't even have anything good to say about that team.
I mean, I don't either. I'm just trying to,
Yes,
say it how it is.
It's cool for me. Hopefully, it's the beginning of the end that we all so desperately want.
Anybody outside of Kansas City, anyway.
Exactly. So, what we getting into here, buddy?
All right. This one I think is going to be a fun one with air quotes. Kyrie Irving tears his ACL, continuing a month from hell for Mavericks fans. Started with Luka Doncic getting traded to the Lakers of all teams. Anthony Davis, first game in Dallas, tears it up in the first half. Third quarter, rips his groin in half. And now you've got Kyrie Irving tearing his ACL while he's trying to keep the Mavs in playoff contention.
Yeah, I wasn't exactly stoked for the Luka Anthony Davis trade, as I have both of them on my fantasy basketball team. So it was a little weird. I was a little nervous on how both of their roles were going to turn into going to their new teams. And then now my whole bench just says IR on my fantasy basketball team. And then,
oh no.
But, I feel bad for Anthony Davis. He went from what, telling the media that he just wanted a little bit of help down low, and they said, if you want help, bud, we're just going to go ahead and send you to Dallas.
I know. And the other side of this, I know we've talked about it ad nauseum at this point off the mic, but I can't wrap my head around any reasonable rationale for why you trade a superstar, 25 years old, top 3 player in the league, just about to enter his prime.
Yeah, now when every Dallas Mavericks fan is down on his knees after getting kicked in the nuts by Nico Harrison, they just get a foot to the face with their only possible, well, I guess I wouldn't say only, but their real leader of the team, possible hope to keep them alive now, shreds his ACL last night in their game.
Mm-hmm.
2 nights ago. What, 2 nights ago? 1 night ago?
I can't 2 nights ago, yeah. It was on Monday. But I'll say this. It's bad. Excuse me. It's bad when your franchise legend in Dirk Nowitzki watches the first game with Luka's new team instead of the roster you've constructed as a result of that trade in Dallas.
All in all, this is going to go down as one of the worst trades in NBA history.
Not just NBA history, but major or pro sports history. I don't think that's debatable.
It's not a debate. You just traded your whole future for a bag of rocks. I mean, and don't get me wrong, Anthony Davis is a great player right now, but he's showing you exactly why he's not worth a 25-year-old franchise star, because he is sitting on your bench right now in street clothes with another injury at 32 years old.
Like Charles Barkley says, you got street clothes Davis out there.
Exactly. So I think it sucks. I would hate to be a Dallas fan. You got to watch your horrible Dallas Cowboys week in and week out, and then you try to turn to basketball to lift your spirits up, and Luka just gets shipped off.
Yep, and as a Mavericks fan, what do you have to look forward to for the next 5 years?
Rangers baseball.
That's probably the truth, as sad as it is to say.
I'm high on Rangers baseball this year. I think they're going to be a good squad.
And speaking of the Rangers, we're going to be getting into baseball towards the end of this pod, so stay tuned for that. All right, now into the meat of this episode, which I think we're both pretty excited to talk about, the NFL Combine. All right, so 4 things that stood out for me from the Combine. One player that I've been looking at for the Bills for a while now is Matthew.
Oh, wait. Hang on. I just got a notification. The Broncos fire outside linebacker coach Will Hoyt after alleged assault of police officer at DIA. So, that's a little bit of news.
Little breaking news for you.
Yep. But so anyways, sorry, I get a little bit distracted sometimes.
No, you're fine.
It's not good that we're sitting here drinking beer, watching basketball.
No, I mean you're good. I mean, and we're not even close to the line yet, which is really making me sweat.
Oh, we're all right. Right now they're sitting at 1:21. Still have 13 minutes to play in the half. We'll be all right. We'll be close.
Right. So I'm going to try to get through these as quick as I can. The number one target for me for the Bills is wide receiver out of Texas, Matthew Golden. If you're a Bills fan or you watch the Bills like Braden does, the one thing that the Bills missed this year was a vertical threat downfield, and they need speed and separation and an ability to open everything else up for guys like James Cook, Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid, and Dawson Knox. And this year, before they traded for Amari Cooper, they had no separation at all. And it really held the Bills back in what they could achieve when their offense is on the field. And even though Cooper didn't necessarily play out there for the majority of the season, his mere presence allowed the Bills to open things up. And have one of the most efficient offenses in NFL history. So, but unfortunately, the man decided to go and run a 4.3 40 at the combine. And you know what that did to his draft stock, Braden? Shot it right up to the moon.
Yep. Instead of late first now, you're looking at mid to early, I would think. I would like to see him running around with Josh as well. But I just don't know if it's possible now. People don't really pass up on that those low fours. But didn't Xavier Worthy last year break the record?
I thought he did.
Got drafted 30th overall.
Yeah.
So there's still hope. I think Matthew Golden would be a great addition to the Bills. And I think it would give them a little bit of versatility in their passing attack. So I'm with you. I would like to see him pack it on up to Buffalo. He'd join one of my favorite wide receivers of recent up there of Keon Coleman. Have a young wide receiver core up there. I like your pick there.
Yep. And then a couple of things I noted is that I'm going to butcher this name. So any big college football fans or South Carolina fans out there, I sincerely apologize. Nick Emanwari, safety out of, as I said, South Carolina, interviewed with the Vikings. Pretty fast riser at the combine. I think his stock is rising to maybe a mid-first round pick.
Maybe I didn't watch a ton of the combine personally, but I heard nothing but good news about this safety. I heard he impressed a lot of scouts, and I think he'd be a good addition. What they just lost Jordan Poyer, or did they lose Micah Hyde? I always forget which one stayed in. Are you going for Minnesota?
I mean, this could be for both. But,
for both,
yeah. I'll touch on the Bills super quick. So for the Bills, they have Taylor Rapp for the next 2 years.
Yep.
Good safety when he's not trying to take out his own teammates.
Yeah.
Let's be honest here. The man is a good safety when he's able to be healthy, but he has a very interesting propensity to torpedo himself at his own teammates.
Yes, he does.
If he can stay healthy, he has an impact. And then on the other side, DeMar Hamlin, I wasn't too impressed by him this year. Yeah. I mean, he was so-so for the other safety spot. He did okay, but he's a free agent. I expect the Bills to let him walk.
I would let him walk. I mean, he was a good story for the year, but at the end of the day, a story doesn't win you an AFC championship.
Nope, it doesn't. And Cole Bishop could become something, but very unproven even out of the second round. He made some good plays when he got in this year, but his playing time was very limited. And with Josh Allen getting close to his 30s, still in his prime, but getting up there in age, I don't know how many more picks you can waste on players that you need to wait to become good.
I agree. I think especially right now in the Bills scenario, you got to be thinking now or never, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you need to attack free agency. You got to hit on your draft. Everybody's looking at you right now as Kansas City's little brother.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get the weapons. You got to beat Kansas City. You guys beat the smack out of them in the regular season. When are we going to see it in the postseason?
Yep, that's the question everybody has about the Bills and the Chiefs. Yep. And I think with this dude out of South Carolina, you get a guy that can do a lot of different things at the safety spot. He can cover. He can come up to the line and blitz. He can draw back into. I mean, he can cover any area of the field that you want him to, and he's big for a safety. 6'3", about 220 pounds. Pretty much a linebacker playing at safety, and
he's a very, very fast linebacker.
Yeah, that kind of versatility in the second or third level of your defense does so much for what schemes you can run.
Yep.
So he'd be great for the Bills. For the Vikings, I feel like I'm just waiting for the announcement that Harrison Smith is going to retire.
I'm with you. Harrison's on his way out. You got to right now start trying to find something to replace him. Even if he has 1 or 2 more years around him, you got to get somebody in that's young and that can learn a thing or two from such a great safety. you obviously you want to mentor it a little bit. Look at Jordan Love with Aaron Rodgers. He learned it from one of the best for a couple of years, and right now Jordan's carrying the boat for Green Bay. So with Minnesota, you get a young guy in to learn a thing or two from Harrison Smith. Let Harrison Smith continue with his life, and let this dude take over the secondary for Minnesota.
Yeah, that's the that's really what I think is going to happen here. And this next takeaway is interesting because I saw this on NFL.com from a draft from Chad Reuter. In this mock draft, the Vikings and the Bills trade picks. And
4.
So in this mock, the Bills trade with the Vikings, and they trade to get Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. And the Vikings draft, you're going to have to help me on this one, corner out of Florida State. Last name's Thomas.
Oh, Azari Thomas.
Yep. That was the trade, and obviously there's a chance it doesn't happen, but I like that trade for both teams, man.
I like Azari Thomas to either Minnesota or Buffalo. I think both have a older cornerback in Rasul Douglas. Is Pat Pete returning to Minnesota?
He hasn't. I don't think he was in Minnesota this year. I think you're thinking of Gilmore, Stephon Gilmore.
Thank you. I'm thinking of Gilmore. Yeah, I'm sorry. Both have. I knew there was a veteran corner in Minnesota. Both have old, experienced. Stephon Gilmore is a proven corner. Besides my boy Pat Surtain, the last cornerback to win a DPOY. If Zary Thomas gets to one of those two teams and learns under Rasul or Gilmore, he can learn a lot in the league, and I think he'd be a great addition to either team that really showed signs for both of them. Minnesota had a great defense throughout the whole year until it kind of really mattered, and then they fell off quite a bit, and I think just adding a good, young, fast, hungry corner like Azari Thomas, he was one of the very few spotlights for me watching last year. Azari Thomas was a very solid corner at Florida State. Granted, he couldn't help us win more than 2 games, but
well, there's only good.
He was a light at the end of a never-ending tunnel for me. I hope he gets to a team and finds his role and shows out in the NFL.
I definitely think he's one of the sleepers in this draft, and whoever gets him is going to get a fantastic player. And this one caught me by major surprise. Apparently, the Vikings, in addition to interviewing defensive tackle Darius Alexander, they interviewed Cam Ward.
Who did?
The Vikings.
Huh. You got J.J. McCarthy sitting on your bench.
That's what I'm saying.
And I don't really think J.J. McCarthy's better than Cam Ward, but the dude ripped his knee in half last year and has not proved anything whether he sucks or he's good.
That's exactly where I sit. And, I mean, how much would it take to move up and get him, though?
Too much, in my opinion. Too much.
That's exactly where I sit. And I'm like, it's probably nothing. It's probably going to amount to nothing. But it really does tell you where Minnesota might sit with their quarterback situation.
I think that also tells you a lot about this year's draft.
Mm-hmm.
You got the 1 and 2 overall picks who desperately need quarterbacks. You got Will Levis with the Tennessee Titans, who does nothing productive but turns into a meme week in and week out. And like I said earlier in this, you got Cleveland, who just has a quarterback with a weird fetish, and then you got my boy Jameis Winston. Neither have a quarterback, and both are willing to trade back out of their 1 and 2 spots. This quarterback class is not good. It's not strong. It's not deep. In fact, you know who my favorite quarterback out of this draft class is? Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss. I think he's going to get taken in the second round, maybe the third. I think I'd be shocked if I saw him go in the third. And I think he's going to be the best quarterback to come out of this draft. He slings. He slings, and he doesn't care if he throws 4 picks. He's going to throw 6 touchdowns.
Right. Which quarterback? I'm sorry.
Jackson Dart.
Oh, yeah.
I love him. He's my one dude that I like watching him throw. Back in college football season, it was a no-brainer for me when I was putting my parlays together on Saturdays. I was taking Jackson Dart 275 plus, and he won me some coin this year. So I like that dude.
So you've got some personal, emotional investment in him. And,
a little bit.
Financial, I guess.
A little bit. I don't need him. I got my boy Bo. Bo Nix is just continuing to climb with the Broncos. So I would like to see him go somewhere, though, and do well. But, going back to my point, I think anybody's open to talking to these quarterbacks because this quarterback class, in my opinion, is just weak.
It's not very good.
Next year you got
Arch Manning.
We got Arch Manning. We got Grant Nussmeier out of LSU. We got Miller Moss out of USC. We got Carson Beck, who ex-Dog out of Georgia, now Hurricane in Miami. Is Wegman out of Texas A&M? Is he draft eligible the next year?
I'm not sure on that one.
I think overall, I just think next year's draft class is a lot stronger. So if Titan fans can stand to sit through Will Levis's memes for another year, maybe you take Travis Hunter number 1 overall, get a weapon for the future.
Right.
That's just what I think. I think that's interesting. You say Minnesota talked to Cam Ward just because I think that it just shows that nobody's like a true lock, in my opinion, this year of like last year. It was given Caleb Williams was going to get drafted by Chicago. I'm sure right now, I think on DraftKings right now, Cam Ward's minus 250 to go number 1 overall. But, Tennessee and New York are co-favorites to be the number 1 pick. Nobody knows who's going where. I do think Cam Ward will go top 3 no matter what, but to who? To where? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
If that's going to be the interesting part. We're definitely going to have a lot to keep track of and a lot to say around the NFL draft. So I can't wait for that time. All right.
Are you done with your combine?
I am, and I want to get into what you have to say in your favorite picks.
Let me. I think it's I think in the late round this year though, I think position skill wise, there's a lot of depth. My favorite tight end, for the Broncos, I think without a doubt, our first round we need to address tight end. I think last year we didn't necessarily suffer from it, but I think we showed plenty of weakness in lack of tight end. I think Tyler Warren's going off the board early. I think we're going to find him in Indy with the number 7 pick.
I could see that.
I could see Indy taking him number 7. I think the easiest way for me to say is I don't think he's going to be available at 20.
Probably not.
So my next favorite pick, I like Colston Loveland out of Michigan. I think he's pretty much I think he shows a lot of the same attributes as Brock Bowers in Las Vegas. I don't think he's quite on Bowers' level, but I think he is a solid tight end that the Broncos could really benefit from. And people say that tight ends don't necessarily fit in Sean Payton's offense. Sean Payton's offense doesn't typically revolve around a tight end, but Jeremy Shockey and Jimmy Graham had no reason not finding their role in Sean Payton's offense for a number of years. I think getting a tight end in there that can be a threat over the middle, I think it's something that the Broncos desperately need. So I like seeing Colston Loveland going to Denver, or my backup plan for that is if Colston Loveland is taken, I would like to see Harold Fannin out of Bowling Green come to Denver. I think that he's the first tight end in, I think, FBS history to get named a conference player of the year. And I can't remember, is Bowling Green in the MAC?
Yes, I believe so.
I think he got named MAC Offensive Player of the Year this year.
Wow.
I really like Harold Fannin. I think he's a solid tight end too. Those are my two that I kind of hope, if we're going to take a tight end, I would like to see them take. And running backs, I think we could also we could strengthen up in the running back. I would like to see Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee. Dude's a workhorse. Last year he averaged 21.5 carries per game. He carries the rock. He had some issues with fumbles last year, but I think like 50% or 40% of his fumbles happened outside the tackles. So it adds a little bit of sense of security. If Dylan Sampson's not there, I would like to reach and give Devin Neal out of Kansas a opportunity. I think really, I mean, especially against BYU, I think he showed a very, very bright future. So I would like Dylan Sampson or Devin Neal. Obviously, if God forbid, if we got no tight end available in the first round, if we draft Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State, I think right now our defense showed we are okay. We don't need to waste our pick on a defensive lineman. Could we upgrade in them? Yes. Do we need weapons for Bo Nix next year? More? Yes. We need to attack offensively in this draft, and I think that Sean Payton knows that. I think that the front office knows that, and I think that's what they're going to do. I would like to see any of those guys, and then my fun pick for the Denver Broncos in this year's draft Tez Johnson out of Oregon. Him and Bo when they were growing up, or early years of Oregon, whatever. I can't remember what it was, but they lived together. Mm-hmm. His mom essentially took him in as a second son. They have great chemistry. They balled out together at Oregon. I think getting Tez back in there would be a great, great slot addition. Catch them on drag routes across, see what they can do. I think Tez would be a fun pick to have. It'd be cool to see him and Bo back together in the same uniform. That's about all I got for the draft, but I think Tez would be a fun pick to see go to the Denver Broncos this year.
Awesome. So my top 5, I kind of teased 2 of them in the combine review, but first is Matthew Golden. Goes without saying, would be a fantastic speed option for the Bills on the outside. They are in desperate need of a guy that can really create space and capitalize on Josh Allen's ability to just huck that pigskin down the field and get big chunks of yards.
Which we all know he does very well.
Yep. So he would be incredible in that offense. And I think Joe Brady would be able to unlock a lot of things that he does well with his skill set. But like I said, I think that 4-3 played him well out of Buffalo's range unless they want to trade up for him. Number 2, Kenneth Grant, D-tackle out of Michigan. You want to talk about a guy that is versatile and a guy that can do a lot of things. If you just looked at Kenneth Grant, you would not know it because the man is a whopping 6'3". Let me make sure I'm getting this right here so he doesn't come after me. He is a whopping 6'3", 339 pounds.
That's a big boy. That reminds me of Mozzie Smith out of Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess out of Michigan that went to Dallas.
Right. But watching him play, you wouldn't think that that those are his measurements, because the man can do everything on the line. He can rush the passer. He can close running lanes like with a snap of a finger.
Complete opposite of Mozzie Smith, who's a very mid defensive tackle.
Mm-hmm. So no, I mean, you want to talk about a true game changer at D tackle. Kenneth Grant does fit that bill. He can chase quarterbacks around, close running lanes, move all along the line, rush the passer. Just an awesome player, and one that I would love to see in a Bills or Vikings uniform, because they both have needs at the same position. And I'm gonna butcher this name too. JT Tuimoloau out of Ohio State, edge rusher.
Oh yeah. What was that? Number 44 for them or whatever.
Yep,
Big dude,
absolute speed demon
dude.
on
Yeah,
the edge.
he in Ohio State's dominant playoff run, and I hate that because I am not a fan of Ohio State, but that man showed numerous times where he was a legit next level player.
Mm-hmm. And the Bills need help all along their front four. And along with Kenneth Grant, a guy like JT would slot right in and give them a lot of the pass rushing presence that they've missed after Von Miller tore his ACL in week 8 of 2022. Still get flashbacks to that day sometimes. And then they just need a difference maker on the edge. If they don't have that, they run into the same problem they do every single postseason. They go up against Kansas City, their lack of size gets exposed, and Patrick Mahomes throws for about 200 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yep.
So both those guys fill a need. Would love to see either of them in Bills blue. This is a fun one for me. Safety Malachi Starks out of Georgia.
He's solid. He's solid. I wouldn't mind seeing him go to Denver either.
Yep.
I mean, if it was possible, if we didn't need to attack offense so bad, I'd like to see Malachi Starks back there, kind of taking a Justin Simmons role replacement.
Right.
But
yeah, I mean, Starks is like Eamon Wari in how he's just so versatile with his skill set and his physical gifts. One highlight I remember is the first year. Do you remember the first game when they played Clemson and they just took him behind the woodshed?
Oh, goodness gracious.
So,
I remember I was in Arizona watching the woodshed beating of Arizona State against Wyoming.
Yeah, I remember that too.
That Georgia-Clemson game was just a big brother versus little brother.
Mm-hmm. And one play that will stick out to me, I think it was Antonio Williams that Kate Klubnik was throwing to. Starks dropped back and was with him step for step the entire way, turned around, snagged the ball right out of the air for a turnover. And I've watched that play maybe 10 times in a row. I mean, again, just the versatility at the safety spot. He can do so much for you in so many different packages, so many different looks, and just a guy that's talented. And the Bills need talent at that safety position, and they need it in that secondary period because as much as I love Christian Memphord, he's one man. Can't do everything. And then this one is interesting. Mike Green out of Marshall, edge rusher.
Oh, he's going to be gone before any of these two teams are drafting.
You really think so?
I think so. I think he'll be an early firster. Early to mid, I would say right around the 10, 11 spot.
Yeah.
But I like him. Mike Green out of Marshall. Very solid edge rusher. You know who I also liked my sleeper?
Ooh.
Was that, I'm going to butcher his name, the Oli Wanfu edge rusher out of UCLA.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
That man, he played well all last year, and then he just lit that combine up. I think he's going to be a very good draft pick wherever he goes.
Right. And for Mike Green, the comp I had for him, and you're going to love this, Josh Sweat. He has the same build, the same look, the same – at first glance, he has the same – ability to beat the blocks, use his speed to get around, to disrupt the pocket, do what Josh Sweat did to Joe Tooney in the Super Bowl, just made his life miserable.
Yes, he did.
And I think if he's there for the Bills and all the other targets are off the board, I think that they'd be really, really stupid not to take him.
Absolutely.
All right, moving on. College basketball.
Well,
game.
Like we said earlier, right now we're watching Florida, Alabama take on each other. Number 5, Florida Gators versus number 7, Alabama Crimson Tide. Just watched Florida yammer home to take an 82-71 lead with 4:40 left. Our over's not looking bad. It's not looking great.
Yeah, it's kind of teetering right
now. We need
now.
Florida to get to about 95, and Alabama needs to get back in this game a little bit. I think it's about 50 right now.
Alabama needs to get to 80 and Florida needs to get to 90 for this to even have a chance to hit.
Well,
I mean, that'll help.
They'll get there. They'll get there. We still got 4 minutes to play. Yeah, I think if Alabama can get back in this game, they'll be there. But, this is one of the many games tonight. We got Texas Tech up 12 right now, 45-33 against Colorado. Texas Tech's a pretty good little squad.
Yep.
I've watched them. Yeah, I unlike a lot of other people that like to report on sports, I'm not good with names. I don't remember. I can remember names here or there, but I like to watch Texas Tech. They typically play a couple of late night games a year, so I always find myself watching them. And Texas Tech has looked really good and very mediocre at times this year, but I think that if they can catch a wind in the Big 12 tournament and find themselves into the NCAA tournament, they might shock a couple people.
Right. I would have to agree. And one team that has really kind of been on the outside of the upper echelon of the SEC, who in fact beat Auburn last night, Texas A&M.
I won some coin on that one. I took Texas A&M plus 5.5. Couldn't, like I said, I couldn't tell you why. Kind of just felt A&M was due for one. Auburn, they went in. What'd they do? They just wrapped up the SEC #1 seed.
I think so. I think I don't remember who they beat last Saturday.
Yeah, I know which game you're talking. I can't remember it either. Oh my goodness, who did they beat? Wasn't Vandy.
I'm gonna look at that right now so we can.
But I went in looking at that game. I just kind of figured Auburn, not necessarily was not going to care about the game, but I just thought it was a kind of a game for A&M to keep it close, kind of a little bit like or what we're going to talk about here in a little bit. I'm not sure what the spread is, but I like Iowa tomorrow night against Michigan State to keep it close. I think they might go into the first half with a little bit of sweat on their brow. Mm-hmm. Tom Izzo, I think Tom Izzo's, he's a legendary coach. He'll have them ready, but I think Iowa's going to do a little something to keep them closer than it should be.
Yeah, I actually think the same thing. I actually wrote up in my little preview that, Tom Izzo's squad is really reminiscent.
Here we go, right here. I got Michigan State 7.5 points against Iowa tomorrow night.
You took them on that spread?
I do kind of like Iowa plus 7.5. And I'm going to put this out in the public right now, and Michigan State's going to win by 25. But
ooh, all right.
No,
all right.
I'm just saying with my luck, I do think Iowa's going to keep this close. I think Iowa is kind of like the annoying little brother of the Big Ten right now, where they're not very good, but they're kind of giving some teams some fits. And I think Michigan State's playing really well basketball right now. I think, what are they, number 8 in the nation?
Yep, number 8. They've been teetering around the top 10 all year.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they're a little underrated in terms of the rankings that are coming out every week. I think they play very good ball. I've only watched Michigan State a couple times this year, but I think of what I've watched them, they're very versatile in their flow of play. Like you look at Alabama that we're watching right now. Alabama thrives off transition and run and gun offense. Let's put up 90. Mm-hmm. Michigan State, I feel like is very good at. They're good at running and gunning, and they're very good at slowing the game down.
Right. I was just going to say.
I think that's credit to Tom Izzo. Yep, they got a great coach there.
Tom Izzo is one of the greats, one of the best coaches to ever step on the hardwood for college basketball. And the one thing that really stands out to me is Jaden Akins is their leading scorer at 12 points a game. They get a lot of very balanced contributions from multiple players up and down the roster. And like you said, this Michigan State team can grind you out for 40 minutes.
Absolutely. And, I'm crediting Michigan State a lot for what I'm saying of Iowa. I think can keep it close, but it's college basketball. At the end of the day, they're 18-year-old kids. Tomorrow, I think that Iowa's going to keep it closer than they should, and honestly I think it's going to be good for Michigan State. There's good teams in the Big Ten right now. Purdue's playing well. Purdue just hung 100 on Rutgers last night. Not that Rutgers is really hard to beat, but
100 points in college basketball is not that common.
No, they got Maryland, who just beat Michigan earlier tonight. Maryland's playing really well ball. Michigan's playing really good ball. Wisconsin's playing really good ball. And there's plenty of deep teams in the Big Ten, and this tournament is going to help a lot with your seeding in the NCAA. Mm-hmm. And I think, honestly, it could complement Michigan State if they do kind of play a little eye-opener close game against Iowa to kind of lock back in and make a run in the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, the one thing that I've loved about the way that March Madness has evolved as more talent's gotten spread out over the country with NIL is there's so much more parity in the sport than there used to be.
Oh, yeah. Yep. And like you said with NIL, man, right now the field only gets wider and it gets harder because now, people don't stick around on the bench to wait for their third year of I'm going to eventually play out. No, they want to play right now. So they're going to go to, look at Rutgers right now. They got what projected number 2 and number 3 overall picks in this year's draft.
Something like that. Yeah.
And they got Ace Bailey, and I can't remember the other guy's name off the top of my head.
Ron Harper Jr.
Ron Harper, thank you. They got 2 solid dudes playing ball there right now. Their team is just below average.
Yeah. It's how a lot of those squads are, though, is you get a lot of the big dogs with the NIL money that you're allowed. And then you can have good players around you, but there's very few teams this year and in this era of college sports where you can bring in those stars and have a good enough supporting cast around them to go on a big run.
Absolutely.
And what I'll say about Izzo is I feel like the man's got one more big run in him. I think he's got one more Final Four run before he retires.
You taking them this year?
I might. I like when Izzo's squads are good, but they're not necessarily all that talked about. I like when you know that they're good, but they're not like number 1, number 2, number 3.
Yeah. Not
up there consistently, but the rest of them.
Yeah.
And
I'm with you, man. I'll be interesting. I like Michigan State this year. I think they're solid. I think the Big Ten's deep. I think that they got a lot of good teams in there. The SEC is about as deep as the deep end. SEC's got 12 teams right now projected to go into the tournament.
Yeah.
We're watching 2 of them right now, Florida and Alabama. They're this year. I don't know, man. If I'm going to take a favorite, I think those Duke Blue Devils right now are playing about the best ball of anybody.
I was just going to say Cooper Flagg is about as good as advertised. They have great players around him to complement him and pick him up when he's struggling.
Absolutely.
And John Shire has stepped into Coach K's spot like he never even left.
Yep.
So,
Duke's dangerous. Auburn's dangerous. I think every year when you got 64 teams that are the best 64 in the nation, the field's always wide open. Right. This year, if somebody can hang with Duke and upset them, I don't even know if I could pick a winner.
I know.
I know. Well, I don't even know who's next in line besides that. I want to say Duke, you know.
Well, and going back to the top of this pod for just a second, that's why we love this sport. That's why we love March Madness so much.
Exactly.
Is you never know what's going to happen. You could have a St. Peter's
any given day.
Yeah. Greatest time of the year coming up. Can't wait for it. And then really quickly, Auburn, Alabama. Don't need to say much on that one. That one's going to be must-see TV on Saturday. And
they're at Auburn this time, right?
They're in Auburn. So that one is going to be my game to watch on Saturday, and can't wait to talk about it next week.
Be a fun one. I want to say it right now. I think I'm going to lean Auburn. I think they got a little bad taste in their mouth after that A&M game last night. I think it'll be a close one. It's going to be a close one. But I think Auburn will sneak that one out. Did Alabama win the first meeting?
No, Auburn did.
Auburn did? Oh, yeah. They ended up kind of winning convincingly.
Yeah, they
Tuscaloosa, right?
Yeah, they I think they were really the first team that Alabama realized could score with them.
Yeah.
And also play good enough defense to
hold them,
to slow them down.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it'll be a good game, man. I'm excited to watch that one on Saturday. We'll have to watch it in a bar somewhere, as me and Matt this weekend are going down to Denver for one of our best buddies, John's bachelor party, where we'll go to a Nuggets game Friday night, spend the weekend in Denver. So we'll have to catch up on some college ball while we're down there, but that'll be a good game to watch.
Yep, 100%. Okay, I'm going to turn the host hat over to you because we're going to talk some baseball now.
Ooh, all right. Where we want to start? We want to start division winners?
Yep, I would say let's start there.
All right. You want to switch conference? Like you want to go my AL East prediction, your AL East prediction?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay. All right, starting in the AL East. The AL East is packed with good teams. But I think my winner this year will be the Yankees, as painful as that is to say. Not a Yankees fan. But in baseball especially, no salary cap, spend a lot, win a lot. Yankees are spending a lot. They got a bitter taste in their mouth with that World Series loss to the Los Angeles Dodgers last year. I think they'll come back. Last year they were 94 and 68. I think they'll be right around the same. Maybe they find themselves a little bit higher, maybe about around the 98 win mark. Orioles, I got them real close in the second spot. They're young, they're building, they're good. They'll be right around the same this year, I think. I think they'll be really close behind the Yankees. They're going to probably lose a couple games against the Yankees throughout the season that they probably should win to help their case. And, I see them in a second. The Red Sox had a great offseason, signed Bregman, a bunch of other key free agent signings. As long as they can wrinkle out those kinks with Devers saying, I'm not playing nothing but third. And, as long as they can find that to flow together, I think the Red Sox could be a solid team. Blue Jays, I think they'll be a little bit below of what they were last year at 74 and 88, maybe about the same. I think them not signing Vladdy this year to lock him up, I think that's really going to kind of hurt their squad a little bit.
How much is that guy going to make on the open market?
Oh, I don't know, man. He's got it. He's going to be around Juan Soto's numbers, I think. I think it's the new precedent now.
Maybe close to 800 mil.
I mean, at this point, like we said earlier, it's just next biggest contract against next biggest contract. I could see Vladdy catching something like that.
It's surreal to think about that. That's the point we're at. But anyway, keep going.
And the real crazy part about that is Vladdy looked at the Blue Jays front office and he told them, I'll take less money to sign a deal, and they still couldn't sign him. And like they were that far apart that they couldn't even come to a deal with that. But then lastly, the Rays, I don't necessarily think they'll come in fifth in the AL East this year. I expect them to be better than they were last year. I think they had a down year. Finished 80 and 82, a little bit below what you want to be in the MLB, but I expect them to be a little bit better than they were last year, but ultimately, I got the Yankees winning the AL East.
Yep. I'll say the same. The Yankees win the AL East just based on the fact that they have the most talent returning. They have most of their squad coming back. I mean, losing Juan Soto does take a bit of a bite out of their swing. But that being said, the Yankees always have a fantastic farm system, always find some other no-name to bring up every 2, 3, 4 years.
A little bit of the weird side of it. The Yankees finally just allowed facial hair.
I know.
So, maybe their boys start playing with a little bit more swag. They got the little beards rocking.
I was just going to say, man, you let these guys play the way that they want and look the way that they want.
Yep.
They let a lot else go, and they just let them play to the top.
And that was like Alex Verdugo last year, man. Alex Verdugo comes from the Red Sox. He has to shave his big old red beard. He looked like freaking Theodore out there from Alvin and the Chipmunks. The big old fat face, bald. Mm-hmm. I like the fact that they went with allowing beards. Now, honestly, in today's day and age, I think the Yankees, the next coming years, they just allow long hair.
Right.
I saw Harrison Bader go from the St. Louis Cardinals to the Yankees. He had to cut it. He had to cut his flow off. Mm-hmm. I just think it's time. Get with the times.
Right.
Let them play the way they want, exactly like you said. Play the way they want. Show the way they want. Just let them play.
I mean, and you want to attract stars to your organization, let them be who they are.
If you want to win a more recent world title than 2009, you probably should.
Yep, 100%. All right. And then I didn't really do records for the other teams, but I will say I think that the next closest team to them is Baltimore. I think that they're a really solid up-and-coming squad. A lot of their farm is coming into their own. And I think they're really gearing up to go forward here in the next few years.
They got Jackson Holiday, they got Gunnar Henderson, they got
Right.
Adley Rutschman.
Right.
They're loaded with young talent. They're going to be relevant. I just think the Yankees are just a step above them. The Orioles are going to be in wild card contention. They're most likely going to make a wild card. I think they're going to earn a wild card spot, but it's going to be close. There's the AL. I think, with especially I think the AL Central. I think they're pretty deep in teams.
Yeah.
The AL West, obviously, you got the Rangers, the Mariners, and the Astros, who were all within a game in their division last year.
Mm-hmm.
The Rangers weren't. The Rangers had it down here. The Mariners were within a game of the Astros. I think it's deep, and especially your own division. The last year I think they only had one. Let me look at my records real quick. They had 2 teams below 500, and the Rays were 80 and 82. So they were 1 game below 500. Their division's deep, but I think the Orioles, they're going to be a solid squad. I just think they're a step under the Yankees.
Yep. I feel like that's where most of that division is. All right.
AL West?
Yep, let's do it.
Who's your winner?
My winner is the Rangers.
Yeah, that's mine. I liked the Rangers last year. They got Simeon, they got Seager, they got Josh Jung, Wyatt Langford. I think Wyatt Langford, I think he's a great bat, and I think that this year, after a year under his belt at Globe Life Field, which we've been to, it's a gigantic ballpark. Learning to hit in that park, I think they all take a step up. I think they finally knocked the Astros off the division run of division titles. I like the Rangers this year.
Yeah, I think, and just the fact that you have all your big guns coming back from that run 2 years ago, coming off a down year, and I mean, I don't know any specific numbers, but Bruce Bochy is still the manager for the Rangers as far as I'm concerned.
Yep.
And I mean, the Giants won 3-5. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, and for the next one, I think the Astros are going to be right up there. I agree. I think the Astros and the Rangers this year are going to be fighting for division. It'll be within a couple games. The Astros are going to be one of those teams fighting for a wild card this year, in my opinion. I think they'll be up there. They'll be fighting for the 1 or the 2 with Baltimore. The Mariners, unfortunately, they were great last year. Like I said, they were a freaking game out of
the wild
card spot.
Yeah.
But this offseason, they added they're a game out of the wild card spot, and you add nothing offensively. If you can't add nothing offensively, I just can't be behind it. I don't think that they added anything to really be relevant again this year. And so really out of the AL West, I got the Astros and the Rangers are going to win it. The A's and the Angels, yikes. There's nothing really to say about either of those two teams.
No.
They're poverty. It's rough.
Well, I mean, aren't the A's moving to Vegas anyway?
Yes, they are, which might add a spark to them. But I think this year, I don't think they're in Vegas this year. I think
they've got one more year in Oakland. And they're going out
because their stadium's still being built.
Right.
And it's going to be where the Tropicana was, wasn't it?
I thought the Tropicana was Tampa.
No. I'm thinking of the casino. What freaking casino was it that they dropped?
Was it the Hard Rock?
No.
I don't know.
Minor pieces, but nope. A's moving to Vegas might be good for them, but this year they're going to watch from the bottom as the Rangers take the AL West. AL Central, who you got?
Tigers?
Yep. Tigers, they're solid. Just got off an ALCS appearance. Skubal. Dude's a gem.
Really haven't watched that guy pitch, but now I really want to because I've heard nothing but good things about him.
You should. The dude throws consistent. He is legit. I really like him. My winner out of the AL Central this year, I got the Royals.
Really?
The Royals were solid last year. They finished last year 86 and 76. I think Bobby Witt Jr., I think he takes another step up. I think he's in very, very good contention of Matt, by the way, our over hit.
I was just going to say.
184. There we go.
There we go.
There's a win. The Royals, Bobby Witt, I think he's already in contention for an AL MVP this year. He maybe hits 8 more homers, drives in a couple more RBIs. I think he's a true contender for the AL MVP this year. Guardians, I don't know where you got them. Guardians last year finished 92-69. I think they won the division. I think they're going to have another great year.
Right.
I think that they're a solid squad.
Right.
The Twins last year, I know me personally, I had the Twins winning the division last year. Unfortunately, they had a average year, finished 82-80. I think a bounce back year this year will happen. But with your Tigers, man, the last year they finished 86-76, got back with an ALCS appearance. Added Gleyber Torres this year to the Tigers. They're adding weapons. I think they have another great roster to make a great run.
Well, and it's funny that we're talking that they're in the AL Central with the Royals, because I think back to 2014, 2015 when the Royals were a wild card team, really young from what I remember, rode a wave all the way to the World Series where they lost to the Giants in 7.
Yep.
Then the next year came back and just bulldozed everybody on the way to a World Series.
Yep.
And the reason I bring that up is because with this Tiger squad, you've got a lot of really good young players that powered you on a massive win streak last fall to the World Series. Didn't get as far as the Royals did in 2014, but you ride that momentum into the next year. Your young Bucks continue to improve, get better. The Tigers, I think they can make a run to the ALCS, man. I think that they're a dangerous team.
They are. And I mean, last but not least, we got another bad team. White Sox finished 41-121 last year.
Well, I will say this. This was the year before they were awful last year. If you look up on YouTube, man calls into radio to complain about White Sox. You listen to that rant for 7 minutes. All you hear is frustration and passion. You want to listen to a real fan of his team, guy who loves his team no matter what, and wants to say what's on his mind, go listen to that. There's nothing more raw or honest that you're going to hear.
Yeah, and they're looking at another very, very dark year.
I don't know when they're going to have another winning season.
I don't either. But let's move on from them. There's nothing really much to say about them.
No.
NL West, I think it's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
Dodgers.
They're
the same as the Yankees, except they're a step above you spending ass load of money. And you're going to win a lot of games.
Well, and you push it all back to what, 2030?
All deferred money. Maybe that means in like 7 years we won't have to watch the Dodgers win the NL West anymore. Maybe, I don't know.
maybe. I mean, I don't know. I think Shohei is going to come back and pitch really well coming off Tommy John because given recent history, pitchers that come back from Tommy John do really well.
Yep. And
Shohei is –
and speaking of pitchers for the Dodgers coming back from injury, what's his name? Dustin Mays? The big long-haired redhead guy?
Dustin May.
Yes, Dustin May. He's coming – well – 2 years ago, he got the Tommy John. Then last year, I saw a thing where he ended up like cutting his esophagus and he had to go into emergency surgery.
Oh, really?
He's coming back to another loaded arm for that team. I don't see how the Dodgers don't win under 100 games this year. They're not going to win under 100. Last year, they finished 98-64. They did nothing but beef it up again this year. I hate the Dodgers, but they're going to win it again. They're going to win it by a lot.
And I agree. I loathe any team out of LA, full transparency. Dodgers, Lakers, you name it, Clippers, I'm neutral on, but they fall into that category when they're good. I just think the Dodgers are gonna run away with that division.
I agree. The Padres, I think Tatis, given Ohtani doesn't hit another 50 home runs this year, I think Tatis is gonna have a candidacy for the MVP this year. I think he's going to come back from injury. Excuse me. I think they're going to be a good team again. They're going to be in another wild card spot. but they're not going to beat the West. D-backs same, Giants same. Pretty much the deepest conference or division, in the NL to me. I think the NL West is deep, and then we have the Rockies at the bottom being the little team. The only thing I have to say about the Rockies is sell the team.
Yep. I mean, I've been screaming that for the last 3 years. I used to be a Rockies fan, and I used to be way into baseball back in my teen years. But the night I heard that they traded Arenado to the Cardinals for nothing was when
and still was willing to pay him for the next 2 years.
Yeah, don't remind me. Do not remind me about those little tidbits. That was the one thing that really that was the straw that broke this camel's back. I had been hanging on to the Rockies for as long as I could.
Well, but it's never too late to join the card game.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how things go. but yeah, I mean, I don't think the Rockies will ever be good under this current ownership group, current front office that's running the team. No. I just don't think they'll be good, and I don't know when they'll be good again. They're just like the White Sox, just the NL version.
Yep. And I mean, overall NL West, I think it's going to be very deep. I think, the Giants added key arms. I think the NL West is going to be very deep. And then the Rockies are just going to be watching.
Yep.
For the next one, I got the NL Central. Who you got?
Brewers.
Me too. I got the Brewers, as much as I hate to say it. Not taking my squad in the St. Louis Cardinals to win the division. I don't think we signed one pitcher this offseason as Cardinals. Nothing to add to the team. We just got to get through this year until we get through new leadership. And until then, I think the Brewers are going to take the division again. Yeah. They lost Devin Williams to the Yankees this year. I think they're still going to be solid. They're going to win games. And, the worst part is out of the past couple of years, watching the Cardinals play the Brewers, we go into that series within 4 games of them. Just hypothetically, we're within 4 games. We got a 4-game skid with them at home, and we proceed to lose 3 out of the 4. And now we're 7 games out, or 6 games out, whatever it is. We never could catch a break against them, and I think the Brewers are going to do it again this year. I think they're going to win the games they need to against the NL Central to take the division, and I just don't see how they don't win it. For the Cardinals wise, they kept Ryan Hensley. That's the best part. We got our save boy. But, like I said earlier in the podcast, when you can't score over 3 runs a game, it makes it really hard to win baseball games.
Mm-hmm. There's only so long you can rely on a really steady rotation and a good bullpen.
And the worst part is we don't have a steady rotation. Literally, our only pitcher is freaking Ryan Hensley, and he's our saver. So as long as we can take the lead into the 9th with 3-1 or 2-1, he'll get us the save. But we got some dark days as Cardinals fans. I'm hoping it's just this year, and next off season's a lot different. But give me the Brewers in that one.
Yep. My reasoning is along the same line. I just think the rest of the NL Central is just completely bereft of talent. And by default, I think the Brewers are the best in that division.
I think the next in line is the Cubs. They added Kyle Tucker this offseason. They still have that weird blue-haired guy who is their catcher. I can't remember his name.
Maldonado?
No, Armstrong's something. Pete Crow Armstrong, I think is what his name is. They added Kyle Tucker. They're going to be solid this year. I think they got Shada Imangama or whatever from Japan. They're going to be a good team for the Central. But the Reds and the Pirates, the Reds, to me, they're a lot like the Dallas Cowboys of the baseball.
Right.
They like to live in the Pete Rose days, and they never rise up to it come regular season. They go on this 18-game losing streak. They're going to find themselves at the bottom of the NL Central again.
Right. What I was going to say about the Brewers real quick is I liken them to the new Clippers of the MLB because they have a really good regular season every year. They get to the postseason, they just
lose.
They lose. They can't do it.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I don't think they'll make it too deep of a playoff run, but I think they'll win the Central.
Yeah.
And then with the Pirates, the only thing I really have to say about the Pirates is
Paul Skeens.
Yeah. Are you in or are you out with him? Because you watch Garrett Cole leave. And that was it was an older Paul Skeens. Are you going to build around this guy? And, in baseball, it's a lot different when you say you're built around a pitcher who pitches once every 5 days. But are you going to build around the guy, or are you going to watch him walk in free agency again?
I feel like you have to build around him because I'm not as in on baseball as you are, but even I know generational talent when I see it.
Yep, and Skeens is it.
Yep, Skeens is a guy that you need to sit him down, be like, A, how much do you want, and B, who do you want to play with?
Fun fact, the Cardinals gave Paul Skeens his first loss last year.
Something to hold on to, right?
Yep, it's the minor things, man. It's something to hold on to.
It's the little things, man, when your team's not living up to expectations.
I think overall, the summary of them, the NL Central is the weakest division in the NL by far. I think the Brewers will win it. If you don't win the division, you're not seeing the postseason because, the NL West and the NL East are too strong. And, going to the NL East, I got the Braves winning this division.
I have the Braves as well, and I've got more on the Braves here in a little bit.
Yep, I'm with you. My thing about them is last year they were incredibly hurt. Mm-hmm. Hurt. Like, Acuna goes out with an ACL tear. Spencer Strider rips his hamstring, right? Or did he get Tommy John?
Something like that.
Yeah, something. Season-ending injury. And then he's out for the year.
Austin Riley got hurt.
Austin Riley gets hurt. Sean Murphy's out for 2 months last year.
Chris Sale got hurt in the wild card.
Chris Sale got hurt. They ended up having to sign a minor leaguer from the AAA team just to start for their wild card game.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, they were incredibly hurt. And with all that happening, they only finished 6 games back the division behind the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yeah.
And they didn't even have the core of their team last year. And they tear it up. I got the Braves winning it this year.
Yep, I do too. All right, let's go to award predictions.
Oh, I'm torn, and I told you about that, and I didn't think too much in it, but I think right now, if I'm going to give a long shot, I think the NL MVP is going to be Shohei again. I think Fernando Tatis is going to be a close one. I think it's going to be really close between the two. I also like Acuna again. I think Acuna could come out of this ACL, light it up a little bit with the bat in his hands. I think it could be close. You always got Harper up there. It's wide open, but give me Ohtani for the NL MVP. And my AL MVP, I know Judge sits on a porch. I know that he's destined to hit 40 home runs a year. Give me Bobby Witt Jr. I got Bobby Witt for my AL MVP.
Nice. Well, I will say this for my NL MVP, I've got Tatis. I think Tatis is going to have a fantastic year.
I think he's due for a good year.
Hitting the absolute crap out of the ball, just being the engine that makes the Padres offense go. And for the AL, this might surprise you, Alex Bregman.
Ooh, a little show out in the old Boston Red Sox town.
Right. So here's what I think. I think, yes, he was very good with the Astros.
Yep.
But the Astros also had an embarrassment of talent around him to where I don't know if he could have become like a true star on that team.
I agree. I think this is a chance for him to actually show it. Boston has good talent around him. I like that pick. I think it's going to be tricky hitting in Fenway. They obviously have a 50-foot wall in their left field. But
yeah,
I like your pick. I didn't really think of Bregman, but I'm still with. I think Bobby Witt Jr. is going to have a great year. But I like that pick a lot. I like it.
I mean, Bobby Witt's going to be up there. I mean, I think Bregman's really going to have his first chance to shine and really take over a batting order this year.
Yep.
All right. Cy Young.
I think my AL Cy Young is going to be Skubal.
I would say the same thing.
Trig Skubal. He's kind of the only one that really just pops out to me right away.
Right. And then go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I got to take Skubal. The dude, watching him throughout the postseason, watching him throughout the regular season, dude's a cannon. He can play. He can pitch.
Yep, he can pitch a lot. And this feels like a cop-out, but I got Shohei for NL Cy Young.
I think it's a little bit of a cop out. I kind of do really like Spencer Strider from Atlanta. Yep. He's going to come back off that Tommy John with a little bit of hamstring in his elbow.
His comeback does factor in later in my predictions, so stay tuned for that.
I think he'll be pretty solid.
Yep. All right. Who wins the AL?
AL. Unfortunately, man, I'm going to be really cut and dry and give you two answers right now. I think it's going to be the Yankees and the Dodgers again in the World Series.
Really?
Unfortunately, it is a pay-to-play league these days, and give me the Yankees and the Dodgers again.
Yep, I can see that. I want to be a little ballsy. I think I'm going to take the Rangers. I think that their stars are really going to carry them again, and they're going to have just enough starting pitching and help in the bullpen to power them back to a strong postseason run. And I think the Braves are really going to benefit from having a lot of their pieces back this year. I think they're really going to benefit.
You got a little Rangers Braves?
I do. I got Rangers Braves World Series, and
Who you got winning it?
I've got the Braves winning the World Series this year.
Braves, huh? I think we're going to see a little tic-tac-toe here. My World Series winner, I think the Yankees are going to win it this year. I think them and the Dodgers are going to go back to the World Series. And I think this year, it's just going to be the Yankees are going to find their groove, and I think the Yankees are going to take it. But I wouldn't say, the Mets I think they just overtook this year's payroll.
For most payroll in the majors.
For just this year. And, obviously that's because 90% of the Dodgers payroll is on deferred. But the Mets are pay to play too. I could see the Mets making a run. I could see the Phillies making a run. I could see Dodgers. I think the NL is wide open in terms of who can make a run. But I think the Dodgers are going to make the World Series again.
All right. Well, that about does it for us tonight. We've gone a very long time, but I had a lot of fun with this conversation, man.
I did too, man. I'm very, very excited about the opportunity to do this with you. I think it's really fun, and I really hope that whoever decides to give us a chance and listens to the stupid takes, the good takes, the horrible takes, whether you hate, whether you love us, if you guys give us a chance to listen to us, we really appreciate it. Before Matt gives us our closing words, I just want to ask everybody, if you take the time to listen to this, please, please, please go follow our Twitter account. It is at 307 ESP, Everyman Sports Podcast, at 307 ESP. We'd really appreciate it. And, like Matt's going to say, if you guys want to come on and talk to us, we're still trying to figure out the technology side of it, but we would love to have people on here, whether they come and join us here in our headquarters or talk to us over Zoom, talk to us over phone, however we got to figure it out. We would love people to join us. We want this to be where anybody can come, talk about what they want. We really want to use it as a let's just talk about sports, It's a very fun opportunity for us. I'm excited for what we did. And first one's under our belt, man, of you and me together. I know it's your second, but it's our first one together. And I'm very excited. I'm very thankful for you to allow me to come on here with you.
Well, I'm thankful that you wanted to do this because, for those of you that did listen to that first one, that was rough going through it the first time. And having someone next to you to talk to you about this and feed off just creates a more natural conversation. And we can just talk about sports the way that we want to talk about it.
Yes, I agree. I think it's a lot easier with two people. But please, like I said, follow us, help us, spread the word. We want to get it to where anybody, all ages, anybody can come and talk with us. Let's talk sports for an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is. And, follow us on Twitter. Please help us. We want to spread it, and we want to make something fun out of this.
Right. And if you do enjoy this and you find it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave a 5-star rating. It helps us get up it helps us with the way the algorithm works on those podcasts, and it helps it reach more people. And little programming note here: we are switching our our podcast host website. So it'll be on more podcast platforms besides Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So be on the lookout for that. I also think we're going to be looking at expanding our social media presence across multiple platforms. We're going to look into it a little more and see what works. But like Braden said, please spread the word. Let them know that this podcast is out there, that we're doing this 3 times a week. We're going to be back on Sunday, right?
Yeah, I think Sunday. I think, like we said, Saturday we'll be down in Denver for one of our really good friends, John's bachelor party. So we'll be home about Sunday and hoping to make some more content. Let's see how the weekend games go, and we'll talk from there.
Awesome. Yeah, we will have plenty to talk about. Again, thank you for tuning in to the second episode of the Everyman Sports Podcast. One more time, I am Matt Robert.
I'm Braden Morris.
And we will catch up with all of you again Sunday.